Hello and welcome to EdTech and Pancakes, a podcast by DreamApply about the intersection of education and technology and paradigm shifts in education. I'm your host, Razmik Sargsyan, and my guest today is Dr. Bert Wolfs, the Academic Dean of SBS Swiss Business School, headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. Dr. Wolfs is a distinguished guest for us. He has been through quite a journey. He is a recipient of the Albert Einstein Peace Award. He has taught at a number of educational institutions, and he also holds degrees from many distinguished universities, including Harvard University. The Swiss Business Schools itself is a globally active business school with campuses and academic partnerships in many countries, such as Spain, the United Arab Emirates, Malta, Myanmar, Latvia, Kazakhstan, along its main campus in Zurich, of course. And this makes SBS one of the most internationally connected business schools in Europe. They are also one of the forward-looking educational institutions that use DreamApply software to manage international admissions, and we're very proud to have the Swiss Business School as one of our partners. Over 300 educational institutions in over 40 countries have used DreamApply software, and we're very proud to have SBS as one of our partners. Under Dr. Wolf's leadership, SBS has emphasized entrepreneurship, applied learning, global collaboration. So these are values and topics that both align very closely with our mission and some of the topics that our audience is very interested in. So Dr. Wolfs, thank you so much for making time for this and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I'm so very impressed with your journey and with your experience. So I want to start by asking, how did you gravitate to academia? Was there a moment in your life when you made that decision, or was this more of an organic unfoldment that was not so premeditated?
Well, I was working in the corporate sector. I was working in the food industry. And then I decided to go, and that was in Belgium, Netherlands. Then I decided to, you know how it goes. You have friends who study somewhere, and that is still, even so many years later in education, the best marketing you can do. They were studying in Geneva, and they said it was fun to study MBA, so I should come there as well. And that's when I went there, and then I saw actually that a lot of graduates didn't know or were not able to apply things they learned in their studies. So they all studied the balance sheet and they could give you all the details of the balance sheet. But then if you gave a concrete balance sheet and say, interpret it and analyze it now, and what would you recommend to the CFO, they were not capable to do that, which basically gave me the idea to study more in detail what is andragogy. So pedagogy is the art and science of teaching children. A child doesn't know anything, so a child needs to learn, or a child needs the father or the mother as a role model, or the teacher as a role model in order to learn. But you have a lot of people who bring their own experiences into the classroom and say, we used to do this and this. What did we do wrong? Or is there any scientific model which can help me and guide me? And take that into consideration, let them do practical exercises, and that helped a lot of students then to move forward. That philosophy basically then led to the opportunity to meet the international dean of the University of South Australia. We're talking about last century now. And he said, we want to collaborate with you and move forward and basically start the Swiss Business School, the SBS Swiss Business School with you. And that was the beginning of everything. So actually, I enrolled a little bit into academia to briefly answer your question. And it's balancing back. I'm still bouncing today.
Well, the philosophy that you just shared, contrasting with pedagogy, that's so interesting. Would you say that's part of the subculture of the Swiss Business School? Or just tell a little bit about SBS in your own words. What is your mission, and what would you say makes your educational institution distinct from other institutions worldwide?
Well, I think that I see that a lot of international universities and business schools are struggling with attracting international students. That is actually the one of the benefits of SBS. We have a very international environment. Number two, I think what is very important, especially for undergrad students, but also master students, is that we are a University of Applied Science Institute. We are accredited and fully recognized by the Swiss state. So we are a kind of federal recognized institution, which basically helps then students to study at other locations once they have completed their first studies with SBS. But besides that, we heavily focus on this practical, experiential learning. What we give students the opportunity to do internships. We give students to set up their mini companies because everybody's dreaming to set up their company, right? And most of the projects still fail. While here they do it in a small form with a limited, very limited budget, but they learn a lot and they have to do it in practice and they have to sell their products to their teammates, to other students, to the faculty, which really puts marketing into action, which puts sales management into action. And I think these are the key differentiators and strong points of SBS.
That resonates with me a lot. Myself, I've gone to 4 different educational institutions, and I think I experienced at least a little bit of what you just pointed to only in 1 or 2 of them. Let's move from general to specific. How do you see the landscape of international higher education evolving within the next 5 to 10 years? Perhaps especially in ways that people normally don't appreciate.
Well, you see, unfortunately, that governments are getting more and more restrictive, which is then related to visa procedure because international students need to go to another country, need to obtain a student visa, and there are more and more restrictions from particular countries for that, which is not always a positive trend. And unfortunately, that trend in the short term will continue. Which is bad because all these international students help to bring diversity, help to bring innovative ideas. They bring things which might work in their home market to the foreign country, or they might do the opposite. Things which work in the foreign country bring to their home market, and then it grows exponentially. That's number one. Number two, we keep on struggling with the level of mathematics and statistics of students. Unfortunately, just to tell a little story, we use more or less the same textbook because mathematics is not changing so much over time, which we used 20 years ago. Okay, it is roughly about 760 pages for the textbook. The students used to manage that entire textbook in one semester. Today, we are offering the same course over 2 semesters, and unfortunately, the results are not the same as 20, 25, or 30 years ago. That means, in general, the level of mathematics, of statistics is going down. And I honestly don't know what to do anymore. In order to help these students, you try all kind of things, gamification. Okay, now, of course, what might be very helpful because that gives them the opportunity to have personalized learning is the introduction of AI. So they find out their own weaknesses and they can develop a small course content for themselves to overcome their weaknesses. But in general, unfortunately, this interest in mathematics and statistics over time is lost, and that has a lot of implications. So that is something as a society overall we need to work on. We need to make sure that these kids sit a little bit less on the computer, sit a little bit less on their phones, but really do the old-fashioned mathematical and statistical exercise, even as a game, which they play together, because industry, for example, is looking for data scientists. Industry is looking for storytellers. Every day I get a call from a company who looks for a storyteller who can interpret, analyze the data, and tell to their CEO in 2-3 minutes what he or she needs to know. You can't find them. And those people who have this job are taking astronomical salaries at home because, these skills have all disappeared. So that is something as a society we need to work on. Another thing which worries me a lot, if I can bring in a personal part, is Yes, we are in a time of AI with all the positive and negative things. We embrace it, SBS AI. It's also part of our mission, which was reviewed in May 2025. But we have to be careful with skills which get lost. Critical thinking is one of them. Not everything you hear in a podcast, for example, you should believe. Not hear everything what you see on TV or read in the newspaper. You should believe, and you should make your own analysis and say, is this really possible? Is this really true? I can better do a little bit of background research and find it out. So that is, this critical mindset is missing. Which is not the best thing to do, because we need critical thinkers. We need people who say, if we want to keep our democratic models alive around the world, who say, hey, I oppose this and I have a different opinion. Please listen to me. We go into a dialogue and we try to find a compromise. And then for Switzerland, especially, creativity is key important, because creativity is an individual skill, is what people can do. But of course, you can teach it, you can help people to further develop it. But if, as a society as a whole, we don't have creative people anymore, that means we will also not be innovative anymore. And Switzerland is year after year the number one in any innovation index you can find. And if we don't continue to foster, to challenge, and to nurture that with our younger generations, our top position might be in danger.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think what you just shared goes well beyond Switzerland. And parts of it are somewhat unfortunate, because then AI combined with actual critical reasoning and creativity creates so many opportunities. But it's painful when a tool that's designed to extend your consciousness can do the opposite. But it's interesting
Well,
that more and more
AI
uni-.
hallucinates. That's what you hear all the time, right? But actually, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, AI never hallucinates. It's just because the person who puts in the prompt does not do the job properly. I mean, AI is just a pure large language model which tries to predict, it's pure statistics, predictive analytics, to predict your next question. And if you then don't train yourself, or you train your audience in putting the right prompts, of course, it hallucinates and comes up with things you never do. But exactly that's why this creativity and critical spirit needs to be there. Let me share another recent example. I put in a large Excel file into one of the large language models. And I said, analyze the data and what are the major conclusions you can draw. It came up with beautiful conclusion. I thought to myself, this cannot be. There is something which is not 100% correct here. And then I asked the large language model, without naming any commercial name, is it really true that you really analyze the data? And then the answer was, oops, that's a good catch. I wasn't able to open your Excel file. I thought to myself, oh my God. So, I recommend our audience to be critical and not everything they put into the large language models immediately accept and say, this is what it says. No, you can always ask, just for safety, did you really analyze the Excel file? Were you able to open the Excel file? And then you can find out a lot of things. So don't believe everything what the large language models for the moment are spitting out.
That's so important to share. And perhaps the problem isn't so much in the fact that it is hallucinating, but so much more in the fact that people aren't really aware of that or testing that. So thank you for sharing. This is a fascinating topic that I am so very interested in. But because our audience is also so interested in admissions and student recruitment, I'd like to ask you a few questions about that. Perhaps the first one, what do you think is the major misconception that universities or perhaps other educational institutions still have about the admissions and student recruitment process itself that is keeping them trapped?
it is too long. It takes too much time. So a student wants to know rather quickly, whatever the time span is, am I accepted or am I not accepted, right? Today, students are doing what I call educational shopping. So they apply in different institutions at different countries eventually to see who gives them the best offer and in a relatively short period of time. Of course, what is always the problem, and even your application helps in that, is that it also comes from the student. The student needs to be able and provide in a timely manner all the documents which the institution is requesting. If the student doesn't provide all the necessary documents, of course, the institution cannot make a decision. That's fully clear. But once all the documents are there, it still takes in most institutions too much time. And then students have doubts. Students need to apply for a visa. And remember, we just discussed it before. What are the difficulties with that? So students become hesitant and look for the other institution. I think that's where, as a whole, in an industry, we can work on it. We should do more automation, more scanning. I still can't have people coming with paper copies. Yeah, sometimes you think we live in the 1900s, right?
That's so interesting, and you're absolutely right that you mentioned some of the problems that our software solves deliberately. And I think even in cases when documents are missing, there's still so much that you can do using technology to remind people to add whatever is missing, to persuade them, to help them in that process. But for sure, that's a great KPI, how much time it takes from the moment you receive an application to the moment you have fully evaluated and present an offer, and how persuasive and relevant it is for the applicant.
Right.
Do you think in the minds of educational managers, do you think they see the problem more in being attracting candidates, so essentially marketing, bringing them to your website, or do they consider converting them into an enrolled student as more of a problem?
Um, I think still the biggest issue is the conversion rate. Because in general, I mean, live is very easy, right? In live, they only ask you three questions. The first question they will always ask you is, which degree do you have? That's always an entrance ticket. Even in times of micro learning, in times of AI, they will continue to ask, which degree do you have? Number two, which language do you speak? And the third question is, who do you know? If you can answer all those questions, you are good for life. But universities still get enough of applications. I am convinced of that. Young generations still want to study at different levels, different majors. That's not the issue. The issue is, how do we convert these students into real? How do we convert, excuse me, these applications into real students? And there, the institute needs to make sure that they have enough man force in our workforce, man or female, it doesn't matter, workforce in the admissions office who can handle all these applications. Um, I was a couple of days ago, even with a friend of mine who is an HR manager in a large company. He says when we post jobs, we get over 1,000 applications. So how can we handle all those applications in this short period of time? Plus, what do we see these days is that most of the applications are written even by ChatGPT because the cover letter needs to be adapted. And he says, if there is an application coming handwritten with a computer CV, this is an application I would consider because this is a person who's standing out versus all those thousand who just uploaded on our database. AI is doing the analysis, looking into the skills, the knowledge, and the competencies. And if you don't have it, AI even kicks you out. There is no human involved anymore. But if there is a person coming with the idea, I put it a handwritten application and I send it. That's a person I would invite because that is a differentiator.
That's beautiful. Actually, we have a feature that's somewhat related to that, which is the video interviews, because so many institutions are having the same challenge, and sometimes they just prefer to have a short video where a person was asked the question and it's just a genuine answer, but it is still somewhat streamlined so you can quickly watch and make a more objective evaluation. So thank you for pointing to that.
That is a good feature, but that is an enhancement which you guys have done in the technology, which we appreciate. But there's also a little warning sign. There are still students reading or waiting a minute. There's a computer next to them. ChatGPT spits out the answer, and then they're reading the answer. So you also, as an admissions officer, have to be a bit critical and really watch what comes there as an answer.
I agree with that, and I would say that's probably one of the secret sauces of DreamApply because so many of the features, the way they come up and the way they're developed, it is completely based on the type of feedback that you just shared. So it is completely made with and for educational institutions, and this ways to trick technology, they're getting more and more sophisticated. So the tools and the understanding of the people that are using them have to get more sophisticated as well.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit about generational trends. What do you think students or applicants are really looking for when they get interested and then they apply for higher education in 2025? And perhaps something that was probably not the case, let's say 5 to 10 years ago.
Well, they're looking different way at career management. Let's start with that, right? Where, of course, I mean, I belong to the old elderly generation. I don't belong to the baby boomers, but the following generations are one of them is mine. So we can always say, "Oh, the new generation, they're so bad," and all this. You can always criticize them. I don't participate in that game. I always say they are different. Yeah, and we need to be able to accept and understand their differences. First of all, they are computer wizards and computer tech. The whole day they're on computers, the whole day they're on their mobile. So you need to understand that they live in a different world. Yeah, they have 10,000 acquaintances on their social media, but in the evening they're still lonely. So you need to take that into consideration that social skills are not always the best. I'm sorry, but we're still paying the price for what I call the COVID generation. I think my colleagues can share that we would have classes where the students were still in bed. There were students appearing on the camera in pajamas and all this. This is not a secret in the educational world, and people cannot make presentations or deliver presentations. So that are things we need to improve for this generation. But they are very committed. They have certain issues: social justice, climate change, difference between male and female salaries, although they have the same skills. They're not willing to work the whole life for the same company anymore. They're eventually not willing to work 5 or 6 days per week. So they have the different priorities. They put more priorities to their own wellness and well-being. All these themes need to be considered as an educational institute or a university, and they often need practical and individual help. And that is what is more or less expected. So the environment in which universities are operating became more complex, and also became, on the other hand, more individual. So that's what we have to anticipate. The last thing, which is a little bit struggle for universities, is, and what I see in the industry, I used to have a lot of bachelor students who graduated. They went to industry as juniors. Yeah, they started junior positions, eventually internships, learning the job, doing by learning, and then moved further on. These days, this is actually a sign of warning to transnational and multinational corporations. They say we don't need these people anymore. And why? Because AI is doing the job. We don't need any more people who make the PowerPoints. AI is doing the job. Okay, good for you. But I'm telling you, and I'm warning you, in 5, 10 years, you as a large enterprise, as a transactional or transnational enterprise, will not be able to find the young workforce anymore because they will all go away from you. They say, okay, if I can't get a job now, if you're not helping me to support me in my career, I will start my own venture. And they all become entrepreneurs. They're all trying all that. And if they succeed, they will never ever go back to the corporate world. And the corporate world will have difficulties to find people in 5 to 10 years, especially from this generation, to say, I'm still willing to work for you, because today they're not welcome because they say, oh, we need to save costs, AI will do it, knowing that not every AI product, and actually the majority of AI products and projects fail. 75%, I think, in a recent MIT study proved that those AI products and projects were failing. So the human touch remains important. And I always say, even if we do a technologically advanced talk today, you can never replace an old habit handshake. You can send kisses and smileys and hearts via all kind of technology, but the old-fashioned handshake you cannot do. And believe me, it makes a difference, even in a tech advanced world.
I agree with you so much. And especially now, let's say if we talk about video content, there's so much AI generated video content that if you previously used to put out content, let's say a podcast episode, and the power of that, I mean, it's still greater because it's contrasting, it's more natural. But I think because of all of this on site interactions are gaining more meaning. But as a follow up to what you just shared, the last challenge that you've observed, how do you see as a solution to that? I mean, you've mentioned that you kind of communicate this to corporations, but as educational institutions, how do you see as a solution? Is it also equipping students with entrepreneurial skills so that they can have this alternative path? Uh, or how do we bridge that gap so that neither of the parties deal with a tough challenge in 5 years from now?
Well, we are working on the entrepreneurial skills of the students, let's be honest, because we see that, I mean, there are still people who are really convinced that they want to go for a corporate career. And then we say specialize in what you are good at, because most of your time spent at work. But you have others who say, no, I don't want to do it. I first want to try myself. I have this idea, I have this product. I understand that this need is not fulfilled. So let me try my entrepreneurial venture, writing business plans, marketing plans, their 1 minute sales pitches and all this, these kind of practical exercises we're doing in our programs, and then try to prepare them as this for successful ventures. And I must say, if I look back at the graduation from 2025 past September, um, forgive me how many exact graduates we had, but at least there were 15 entrepreneurs in that graduation, which to me, in my 30 years educational career, never ever happened. 30 people who graduate and already started their own business venture. It was like, wow, this is a new world. And you are now different kind of ages, because of course you had MBA graduates who said, after my 15 or 20 years corporate career, I want to try now for myself, which is normal. But you also had a lot of bachelor students which says, no, I opened my own business and it's going very well, and etc. etc. They were very enthusiastic, and we're always saying, what's your cash flow? What's your cash flow? But say, no, everything is going well. So hey, this is the new world in which we live.
That's partially inspiring and
Only
interesting.
partially. That's a disappointment.
I think it primarily inspiring. The question that it triggered in my mind was, what do you think about the idea of intrapreneur, so an entrepreneur within an organization? Because I think a lot of people, especially now that there's more social proof for starting your own venture, so many people want to get into that, but then they also need some sort of a certainty. So is there maybe a middle way that could be more Streamlined and offered as an alternative to people to solve this?
Let me give you a typical Harvard answer. It depends. So it depends on what? It depends on, I think the most important is the corporate culture of the organization, and unfortunately, not every multinational, transnational corporation has this kind of intrapreneurship culture. And secondly, this is good for mid-level management, right? You have some experience, you know how things are working, and then you can basically foster your own development. Let me give you an example of that. I had an old student, a graduate, who was working in a multinational corporation in a certain geographical region where the product they created was really needed. But at the end of the day, that region didn't have a high capacity to pay. And on the other hand, they were not sure that they would have a certain amount of turnover. But in another part of the world, they had a similar problem. And in order to say and go to senior management and say, hey, we have this idea for this region, they got together and they said, now we have two regions which are actually having the need for this product. Then senior management said, oh, if you guys have so many requests and there must be such a demand for that product, then we will approve it. It's a kind of entrepreneurial thinking within a large enterprise. If we try ourselves, it will not succeed. But if we hook up with another region, we will succeed. Creative thinking, whatever you call it. And then they launched the product, and the product is still existing today. And is actually the sales figures are doing very well. So they're all proud, but the overall organization needs to allow such a corporate culture. And change management is a daily exercise, is a weekly exercise, is a monthly exercise, is a yearly exercise. But still, even the environment is changing, geopolitics are changing. These big elephants, what are these multinational corporations, do not change so fast. There is a beautiful saying, big elephants can't dance, and that unfortunately is still applicable.
I agree. How would an entrepreneurial mindset or attitude applied in enrollment management and admissions and student recruitment look like?
Creative ways to attract students, fostering, out of the box thinking, promoting maybe more skills than just pure knowledge. That's also a second thing which we at SBS foster. Yes, we understand that Europe is still a knowledge continent, but more and more we're shifting to what we call the relationship economy. Relationship economy, where skill sets which are required for this relationship economy are different. For example, how do you trust anything which appears in the internet? What about your resilience in case things fail? Can you tell a story? If you have the figures there, can you make it an interesting story so you can basically tell your customer what is the value of the benefit you're bringing to him? So I think as admissions managers using your application, we also, yes, your application gives a lot of opportunities and has some drop boxes and all these kind of tools, but also the person behind the application needs to be a little bit and entrepreneurial.
I love the sound of that. Well, you mentioned our software. What do you think is the strategic importance of having DreamApply software as a tool for the Swiss Business School for admissions and beyond? How would you describe it? The
It
strategic.
creates a process where we find all the documents nicely, tiny in one place. If you need to get some information about applicants, you can find it quickly. It's like a very, I mean, if I would compare it, an ordner which is which is fulfilling all your requirements. That is the biggest advantage, and it's of course a process with procedures in place, standardized, which I think is also very important for an institution, and people in different offices can enter the application and can see, where are we standing, what do we still need, etc., etc. These are the immediate benefits of your tool.
Thank you for sharing that. Was there a specific function, direction, or a feature within DreamApply that stood out to you particularly?
To me, no, because honestly, I'm just supervising the team. I'm not day to day anymore working with the application. You should have asked me that question before. I would ask the team, but I honestly cannot answer that question.
That's perfectly all right. And I mean, we already talked about advice to admissions teams, but given your understanding of DreamApply, what advice would you give to other educational institutions to get the most out of DreamApply and potentially use it even beyond admissions?
Exactly. I mean, it is also a tool which helps you to do the analytics, which I think we don't do enough. I mean, it's actually providing you with all the information you need, and it helps you to find a new trend. It helps you to see what applicants want. It also helps you to see where do applicants struggle, and maybe you need to consider: do we really need to continue to ask this kind of questions? Do we really need to ask this kind of documents? If the majority of all applicants are struggling, doesn't mean that you have to lower the standards. I don't mean that at all, but you need to be flexible and adaptable. The tool provides you all this. Why don't you use it? And I think looks to me that majority, when I speak to other colleagues and schools, are not coming to that. So yes, we use it to neatly know where is all the information, but then how are we doing? What did the information tell us? There is room for institutions and admissions teams to improve.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sounds like I'm a salesman of your tool now, but it's not.
Music to my ears.
I'm
No,
just
but I
sharing my thoughts and what I see with my own team.
Thank you. And I agree. And not even beyond DreamApply, I think there is this tendency, especially when a specific utility of a tool is so obvious, and let's say it automates things, it saves you time. But we don't, few of us go beyond that and try to kind of use the data that is being accumulated in that to make amendments more at a source level that have the promise of resulting in changes that are much bigger.
Correct. We like a little bit take it easy and we rely on the tool and the tool will do the work. Yes, but the tool actually gives you much more opportunities. The tool gives you a lot of information which actually we don't use um, because of time constraints or whatever. But I think there's room for improvement.
Looking 5 years ahead, let's try to visualize it. What part of the admissions process do you expect will change the most and look differently than it does now?
That's a good question. Not sure if definitely the impact of AI, which will even allow the applicants to have a more personalized admissions process. I think also we'll be able to process applications much faster. Yes, all institutions will start to look for new markets, eventually new market segments, which will have different application requirements, and we need to adapt for that. That are my personal short-term future predictions, if you can call it predictions or more analytics.
Beautiful. And maybe let's go beyond admissions a little bit. A few more questions. I know our time is not unlimited. In one of your papers, I think it was about strategic resilience. I mean, you went beyond this topic. So, if I'm not mistaken, it was about pandemic war realities and digital innovation. Um, from even an enrollment perspective, what role do you think technology or digital innovation plays in ensuring resilience today, and how can this be applicable to educational institutions specifically? In other words, how do we use technology for resilience?
That's a good question. Thank you for that. The first thing is that there's still a sign of warning. Technology will not replace your psychiatrist or your psychiatrist. We have to be careful with that. I have had students, and I'm sorry this might be a very shocking message, but it's truly honestly what I experienced, where technology told the student that it would be the best option to commit suicide. These are dangerous things, and if then a student only relies on technology without humans supporting, intervening, helping that individual, so there is still a sign of warning. Use technology in order to increase productivity, use technology in order to relate information, spit out information, help with statistics, but be careful on a personal basis. Your technological tool is not your psychiatrist, neither your psychiatrist. So we have to be careful, and I think that humans are still important. We need to use technology to benefit for humanity, but technology should not take over humanity.
I agree.
That is
So we shouldn't try to extinguish fire with fire in cases when the problem itself is
because
caused by
then
that
things
thing.
happen, and technology can never know all the facts. Again, technology makes predictions, but if this kind of shocking experiences come to you, then all the alarm bells go off, and immediately you put in your supporting team to help that particular student. So unfortunately, suicide and all these kind of things I have experienced in my academic career from students. So um, you have to be careful.
Hmm. One
Sorry
other
for
topic.
that, but this is true story.
I think it is worth bringing all these topics top of consciousness. It's crucial that we do, and that's one of the things we also want to accomplish through this podcast as well. Bring up all the issues that maybe we all face, but we're not talking about. Perhaps one more question related to admissions. You mentioned automation, and our philosophy is that automation should be combined with careful human touch, with proper personalization. What Let's say if we talk about certain automations in the admissions process to reduce the administrative overhead, how do you normally approach automation? What would be your guiding principles?
Automation should make the life easier for all the people. To a certain extent, things which are timely, which are repetitive, that should be done by automation. Manually calculating the results or a GPA are trying to find the mean or median if you have a number of applications on transcripts, this kind of things. That is all things which should be done by automation. You don't want to see humans there calculating by hand or even with a calculator to do that. That's to a certain extent waste of time these days. But I think anything which helps, and then this repetitive task, which can be done by automation, which helps then the individual or the admissions officer to do more strategic thinking and to see, let's analyze the data which we have and where can we improve, which new strategies can we develop for the university to come up with a new program, to adjust the curriculum, to look for a new market. That is a win-win situation.
A slogan that I like is automate the repetitive, personalize the imperative.
That's correct. I fully support that.
Beautiful. Two more questions. If you could make up any brand new rule, a regulation, or a principle that higher education should adhere to, no choice, what would that rule or principle be?
The product you deliver, which is in this case the student, is that product fully competent and compatible with what the job market wants. If you can do that, we're doing miracles in education. Unfortunately, we do not succeed to all kind of issues, but we don't succeed in that. But that would be wow, because the gap between education and industry, unfortunately, after so many years, is still there. That's a pity.
And the last question, if you would have our listeners walk away with just one insight from our conversation, one piece of advice, what would that be?
I hope we didn't waste your time, and I hope we could guide you and help you. And if you need a really good product, why don't you call the company? And they're always available for a test. You need to negotiate a little bit. You need also to adjust yourself to what your university needs. They're very friendly, they're compatible, and they are always happy and helpful for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wolfs, for taking the time and sharing so many interesting, thought provoking insights. This is EdTech and Pancakes. I'm Razmik Sargisian, and we'll be back with another episode soon. Goodbye.